Some of you know that I have a lot of Beatles-related gear, some vintage and some reissue. In order to get gear and create sounds that are the closest you can get to the Beatles, you need to research the specs of the instruments, the recording gear, and the studio techniques employed by them. And there are some fantastic books out there that answer a lot of questions. The Beatle-related books I consider the best are the ones that shed light on the recording of their music and the gear they used to create so many magical songs. There are two things that I look for that really help me learn about the gear and the recording process of the Beatles: research books and source books. The research books are the ones that, someone took all that time to find the details. The source books are the people who were there, and they might have a little bit of a blurry memory, but they're telling you their experience. For gear, the most important book you should have is Beatles Gear by Andy Babiuk. It covers nearly everything you need to know about their guitar specs, keyboards, drums, and amps. The pictures are either the actual gear of the Beatles or spot-on examples of the same vintage gear. While I own 5 guitars that actually appear in the book, I had every iteration and update of this book long before I acquired them. Honestly, I don't think anything can really replace this book. I've literally burned through several copies and updated versions looking through them on airplanes, vacations, and in my own research. I still have different copies in various locations of my house. If you want to learn about the specs of the guitars, if you want to see pictures of them, if you want to look at the drums and the keyboards in chronological order, so it's very easy to find what you're looking for, this book is just amazing how complete it is. Just to be able to look at all the Beatles guitars and read about them individually in chronological context is just amazing. It's just incredible. That's what makes this book so special. The first book I go to about the gear used to record the Beatles is Recording the Beatles by Brian Kehew and Kevin Ryan. Yeah, it cost $100 at the time I bought it. Now it's a lot more expensive because it's out of print. But to me, it was worth every penny. Much of the gear used to record the Beatles was literally built by EMI and not available to anyone else. So finding detailed information was nearly impossible before this book became available. It details all the microphones, mixing desks, sub-mixers, compressors, EQ units, and even tape techniques and keyboards. Tracking information of many songs and sub-mix reductions can also be found. And it has fantastic pictures of the gear as well, which helps you to identify it if you want to try to find it and buy it. It's very, very nerdy, but I love that. Another great research I check out when doing covers and learning about the recordings is the Beatles Recording Reference Manual by Jerry Hammack. It's a series, and it's organized in a great, easy format of the details for every song, and is definitely one of my go-to sources. I don't agree with every detail in these books, but no one's going to get everything perfect when discussing studio gear used for each song because the amount of written notes for what was used on each song is limited. I own the whole series, and I love it. It's a great place to start from when I try to recreate the Beatles sound. On the topic of Vox amplifiers, nothing surpasses the detailed research and pictures of Vox amps like Vox Amplifiers, the JMI Years by Jim Elyse. I have several rare vintage Vox amps, and I'm blown away by the detailed research about JMI era Vox amps in this book. Absolutely outstanding. The other books that are really helpful in finding a focus on truth are from sources that were actually there. Books like All You Need Is Ears and With a Little Help from My Friends by George Martin, the producer of the Beatles, and Here, There, and Everywhere by Geoff Emerick. Some people find that the stories or memories that are related in these books contradict facts or have it wrong, but I want to hear from the people that were actually there and sift through their recollections on my own. Did Emerick favor McCartney in his book? Yeah, so what? That's the impression he got, and that's the impression he gave. In itself, it's very telling about them both. And it's hard to be objective when you're talking about your own experience. Everybody processes experiences differently. Of course, the Beatles recording sessions by Mark Lewisolm and the follow-up, the complete Beatles recording sessions, is a great outline of the historical recording dates and is a source cited by several works that came after. Knowing the dates of things when they got certain guitars and certain amps is really important. So if you have a timeline book, that's really helpful sometimes. Books with fantastic pictures are also really important when studying the gear and recording of the Beatles. Any shots of the Beatles taken while actually in the process of recording are gold and help sort out the guessing from the facts. One of the coolest sources of pictures is actually the Beatles Monthly books, which I bought at Beatles conventions after going through each there and finding pictures of gear and sessions. Sometimes the captions are wrong or inaccurate to what's going on, but the photos are invaluable. Robert Freeman took amazing photos of some Revolver sessions detailing the recording process, amps and guitars being used. His book, A Private View, definitely has some fly-on-the-wall photos in the studio. Another amazing source of photographs are in a very, very, very expensive book, $500, called Kaleidoscope Eyes. And it's a series of pictures by Henry Grossman from the beginning of an evening with the Beatles at Abbey Road to the end of the evening. And it really is the closest you can get to spending an entire evening in the recording studio with the Beatles while they rehearse, write, produce, and record. The only problem is that it costs so much. But at the time, I knew how important it was to me to have this and to be inspired by it. And so I spent it. And I haven't looked back. It was a limited edition that's now out of print, but I'm such a nerd, I paid that money and I don't regret it. It is literally a chronological record of what happened in an evening of the Beatles at Abbey Road, showing a new song to George Martin, working out arrangements, visitors who stopped by in the studio and stayed, what the atmosphere was like that night, and what gear was being used to work and record. When I did my cover of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, I took a lot of inspiration from the pictures in this book. They are truly amazing. The amps, setups, guitars, processes, it's all there. Now, some of these pictures can be found on the internet, but I love having them all in order to witness and experience the feel and mood of that night. As you can see, I have many books on the Beatles, far more than are shown here, by the way. I organize these books on the cart for my studio reference when I work on videos for my channel. If there's a book you really find really helpful in learning about the gear or recording the Beatles that I haven't mentioned, by all means, put it in the comments. I want to know what you're reading and what you found really helpful. I hope this was helpful to you, and happy hunting.